The funhouse mirror is an honest liar. It takes our form and stretches it, compresses it, makes it a carnival of our familiar shape. We laugh because the distortion is so obvious, so external. But what of the distortions we don't recognize as entertainment? The ones that feel like reality itself. A mirror can be warped by a flaw in its silvering, by a crack in its glass, by the very way it's curved. And if the mind is the primal mirror, as we've explored, and then it too can be shaped or misshapen by the pressure of experience. Sometimes the reflection feels like a lie, but perhaps it's still teaching us a brutal, essential truth about the state of the glass. We often speak of trauma in a psychological sense. Trauma can be understood as an overwhelming event that the mind cannot fully process or integrate at the time it occurs. It gets stuck, like a flaw in the lens. This isn't a personal failing, it's a human response to inhuman pressure. And this flaw then bends every subsequent reflection. A mind shaped by early abandonment may reflect a world that feels perpetually unsafe, interpreting neutral faces as threatening. A mind marked by a violation may see its own body as a site of betrayal rather than a home. The reflection is distorted, yes, but the distortion isn't random. It's a perfect map of the wound. The mirror isn't lying about the world, it's showing with terrible accuracy the fractured lines in its own structure. To see a grotesque reflection and think, that is me, is a profound suffering, but to see it and begin to wonder what has happened to the mirror is the beginning of a different relationship with the image. Beyond personal history, there are the cultural and cognitive distortions, the biases and filters we inherit without even knowing we're wearing them. Confirmation bias is the mind's tendency to seek, interpret, and remember information that confirms its pre-existing beliefs, creating a self-reinforcing reflection. Implicit bias operates below the level of conscious thought, warping our perceptions of others based on social categories. These are like subtle, pervasive waves in the glass, making certain truths appear larger, uglier, or more threatening than they really are, and rendering other truths invisible. We look out and believe we see objectively, but we are always seen through a lens crafted by our upbringing, our culture, our language, the religion that was forced upon us. A distorted mirror doesn't show us a false world. It shows us selectively edited, emotionally tinted version of the real one, then tells us the edit is the whole truth. Then there is fear. Fear is the ultimate funhouse mirror, the master distorter. In a state of anxiety, the mind's mirror doesn't just warp, it fragments. A single worry can multiply in the reflective surfaces, becoming a hall of horrors where every reflection shows a different catastrophic future. Fear takes a possibility and reflects it back as certainty, enlarging it to feel the entire field of vision. It's fascinating to realize that this isn't a modern malfunction, it's an ancient survival mechanism gone awry. The brain's amygdala, central to processing fear, can hijack the higher reflective capacities of the prefrontal cortex. When survival feels at stake, the mind abandons nuance for stark, distorted caricatures, friend or foe, safe or deadly, perfect or ruined. The mirror of consciousness, designed for clarity, becomes a kaleidoscope of threat. So, we are left with a vital question. Can a distorted mirror still teach? If the reflection is not true, what use is it? I believe the distorted mirror is perhaps our most urgent teacher. It teaches us where we are not free. It points directly to the wound, the bias, the unfaced fear. The grotesque image in the glass is not an indictment of the self. It is a diagnostic tool for the soul. It says here, look here, something has happened. Something has been believed that may not be wholly true. The glass itself needs attention. The enlightened masters of old understood teaching through paradox and disruption. They didn't always offer a clear, calm pool. Sometimes they presented a distorted reflection to shock the disciple into questioning their own perception. A Zen master might have a nonsensical koan shattering the student's logical mind mirror to allow a deeper, intuitive reflection to arise. A Sufi tale might upend conventional morality, warping the familiar to reveal an unfamiliar truth. These were not lies, but higher order truth that could only be seen once the comfortable, everyday mirror was bent out of shape. The distortion itself was the path to clarity. Therefore, the work isn't to argue with the distorted image, to try and convince ourselves that the elongated body or the monstrous face is not real. That just creates an internal war between the perception and the wish. The work is to turn our attention with great compassion to the mirror itself, to ask, what has curved this glass? What impact has created this crack? What fear has frosted this surface? This is the move from fighting the reflection to understanding the medium. In therapeutic terms, this is the process of integration, gently revisiting the trauma with supported awareness to allow the frozen experience to finally move and metabolize. In contemplative terms, it's sitting with a distorted thought or feeling not as ultimate truth, but as passing weather patterns in the mind's sky and inquiring into the sky itself, which is always clear behind the storm. A broken mirror, its surface a spiderweb of fractured lines, shows us not one reflection, but dozens. A shattered self-image can feel like the end. But what if, in those shards, we are being shown that we were never meant to be a single solid monolithic reflection? What if the breaking reveals the multiplicity, the many facets of a being that cannot be contained in one perfect surface? The distortion, the crack, the break, they are not failures in the mirror. They are its evolution. They are its cry for a more complex, more resilient, and ultimately more truthful form of reflection. A distorted mirror teaches us that truth is not always about a perfect, clear image. Sometimes truth is about understanding the nature of the distortion, and in that understanding, finding the first clue to making the whole lens whole again.